part of the Earglue Media family of podcast.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 318, The Art of the Rise of Skywalker. So it took much longer than any of us wanted it, but it finally arrived here on March 31st, 2020, exactly 102 days after the release of the Rise of Skywalker movie. So why did it take so long? Well, someone who may have the answer for us is my guest tonight. He's the creator and co-host of the Film Appraisers podcast, a sister podcast for us here on Earglue Media. He's also been with me on The Basement a few times. He's a fellow Austinite, a father. He's a personal friend of mine. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Josh Crawford. Josh, welcome to the Cantina Cast, my friend. Took way too long to get you here, sir.
Oh, no, thanks. It's actually a pleasure to be here. I go way back with Cantina Cast, so it's nice to actually be on a show I really, really enjoy.
Yeah. No, how many times do you get stuck on a show you don't know? I'm kidding. No, thanks for, appreciate you answering the call. And this is one that I've really been wanting to cover here, and it just seems like we waited so freaking long for this thing, but I won't complain about that. So now let's say you and I have gone and seen Solo: A Star Wars Story together, Rise of Skywalker together. Yeah. And what was the other?
Transformers, the movie.
Oh, no. Yeah, Transformers. And then we also saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, that's right. Transformers, the movie, though, clarify, it was the animated version.
yeah. Not the atrocity that came out by Michael Bay. No, this is, the original one. There was a re-release 40th anniversary, whatever. I think it was 30th, 35. I don't know. Something like that. That was a lot of fun. So once this coronavirus thing is all over, we need to get together and plan another movie like
get the theaters open.
I know. So before we go any further, I thought maybe you could just kind of share with the audience your experience with Star Wars. Why do you love it? I know you do. You're a huge fan of Star Wars, even though, again, this is only your first time on here. But if you're a part of the Discord channel, Josh can hang with the rest of us and anyone else, to be honest. But where did you, experience Star Wars, and what's it mean to you, especially now as a kid, and then now as a father as well?
Yeah. So I am an original trilogy guy. I feel like when we say that, because we have so many different generations with Star Wars, it's like an AA meeting. So my name is Josh. I'm an original trilogy fan.
Yeah.
It's been with me as long as I can remember. My first Star Wars film in the cinema was Return of the Jedi. And I mean, as a kid seeing that in the cinema, what more can you say?
Right.
The day we got our first VCR delivered to us by Sears was the same day that CBS aired A New Hope. So that was the first one we recorded. And that videotape is floating around somewhere in the house.
Nice. Oh, really? You still have it?
Still have it. I just can't find it. That's the problem. Yeah. So there's no telling what happened to it.
Well, I'm more impressed that you said VCR, Sears, and CBS all in the same sentence.
Right.
I mean, there's half this audience has no idea what you're talking about.
Right. Original trilogy.
Yeah.
It's always been there, and I've always enjoyed it. I mean, when it's good and when it's not quite as good. And I mean that because it's not, to me, it's never bad. It's always just not quite as good. Joe, a co-host on the Film Appraisers, we have talked about our pizza analogy with Star Wars. And that's just how it is. It may not like Detroit style, and you may not like Chicago style. New York may be your style, but I mean, it's still pizza. I'm going to eat it every single time. So that's kind of how I feel with Star Wars. Regardless of where it lands, as far as my preference, I'm still going to watch it.
Can you use, is it fair to use the beer analogy? Is that still a thing? Because are there people out there now? It seems like, I don't know, 30 years ago, beer was a perfect analogy. It's beer. Anybody's going to drink it. But now there's so many craft beers and people like all these different things and all that. It doesn't feel like that's the same, but maybe
give Star Wars another 30 years. Maybe we'll have enough variety of Star Wars that it will be there.
Yeah, true. Cool. Well, let's do this. I've got one fun thing I want to start off with. Since this is your first time, I'm going to run you through the mill here, and I'm going to ask you a few lightning quick round questions about Star Wars. And I want you to answer these as sincerely and as honestly as possible. You ready?
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right. We'll start off real easy. What's your favorite original trilogy movie?
Empire. No doubt.
No doubt.
Hands down.
No hesitation.
Nope.
Favorite prequel movie?
Return of the Sith. Return of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith.
Favorite sequel trilogy?
The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
It hurt a little bit to say it, but
yeah,
it's The Force Awakens.
In what order should you show the movies to someone who has never seen them?
Well, I'm gonna contradict myself because the proper answer is the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the sequel
4, 5,
trilogy.
6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9.
But the way I showed my son was in order.
Yeah,
So.
I did the same thing, and it worked. I think it worked.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, here's a little bit tougher one. What's your favorite Star Wars moment all time?
All time, hands down. This not even close. So when I went to the cinema for Return of the Jedi, the first time I saw that, I remember a lot of little things. I was pretty small. I remember a lot of little things. Jabba, you can't forget. The throne scene, you can't forget. But nothing comes close to on the skiff. The little salute to R2, shoots the lightsaber, bounces off, flips. I did that a million times in my house, in my living room. And it's my favorite song in all of the saga. That Return of the Jedi is my favorite song. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite scene, hands down. Not even close.
Very cool. Who shot first?
Han shot first.
Yep. Question number 7. Was the Chosen One prophecy fulfilled in Return of the Jedi?
Before I saw the sequel trilogy, I would say yes. But after seeing the sequel trilogy, I don't know.
That's fair. AT-AT or AT-AT?
It's AT-AT.
John, let's just end the show now.
It's actually it's an Imperial Walker. If you want to
Thank you. That's fine. Sith lightsaber, Jedi lightsaber, or dark saber?
Oh gosh, dark saber's cool, but it's not. That's way later. I mean, if I have to pick, I'm gonna go Jedi, but I really want to make a Sith lightsaber at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Jedi.
Green, I would expect. Yeah.
I actually have the Return of the Jedi Sith or Return of the Jedi saber, Luke's saber. The one that what is that place called? Ultra Sabers make them. That place out of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the thin neck on it. Yeah, that's really nice.
Very cool. All right, last question. Is the dark side more powerful?
It's tempting.
Quicker? More seductive?
Yeah. Never lasts, though.
All right. You did well. You got most of those right. 2 right, and the other 8 were wrong. So congratulations, and thanks for playing along there. All right.
In this day and age, it's just pass fail anyway. So
yeah, it's either you're on or off. So
that's right.
There's no middle ground. All right. Let's get into the news. We've only got one thing, really, to talk about this week. They released StarWars.com had put out an article about the High Republic. And in the article, it gave us some insight into the characters and a little bit of the background in terms of, we kind of already knew what, 200 years ago, they reiterated a lot of stuff here, but they actually broke down 4 or 5 of the main characters and kind of gave you some real quick, character synopsis of each one of them. And they gave us some artwork to go along with it. So, I think officially this is they are all different, approaching the Force in individual and unique ways, and yet are united with a common goal. They serve not out of unwavering dogma, but a deep passion to protect light and life. It says they're all in different stages of their individual journeys. Some have experience on their side, some have exuberance of youth, some are still finding their place in the order, while others step naturally into leadership roles. Some may not have chosen to work with the Jedi they've been posted alongside, but all are dedicated to be a guiding light in the galaxy. Individually, they are strong. Together, they invincible. That sounds like, we'll come back to that in a second. Individually, they're strong. Together, they're invincible. But like the best heroes, they each have lessons to learn and challenges to overcome. Exciting times lie ahead. So that's not the whole thing. There's actually a lot more to it, but I thought I'd just give you that part that kind of sets the stage. But the 5 characters, they gave us Avar Kriss, Loden Greatstorm.
Great name.
And it's a really good name. Keeve Trennis, female there, Stellan Gios, and Venestra Vern. She's got a nickname.
Vern.
Already. Vern Rowe. So what do you think? What do you think of the characters themselves? I know we don't necessarily need to read all of the backgrounds, but did any of them step out? And what do you think of the character designs here?
So they all have this similar dress to them, which it kind of feels, I don't know if this is the right term, like it kind of feels high and mighty, like where we would expect the Jedi Order to be at,
right?
Better than everybody else. That's just what it looks like. They all have this similar dress and a lot of order to them. Mm-hmm. And that's really stood out to me, because you can tell the difference with like Loden Greatstorm. He's a master and he's dressed like one.
Yeah.
And then you have down with
almost regal looking, right?
Very, very regal. With Keeve, she looks like a Padawan. She doesn't have I guess I wouldn't say nobility, but there's like a higher class to some of these. Yeah.
She's definitely got her Padawan braids there.
I would expect Greatstorm. Loden Greatstorm to me looks more fitting of this guy that has the crossguard lightsaber, Stellan. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's more. But yeah, it feels like that might be where we're at. They dress different. Maybe they're just full into the path that the Jedi Order is going down, and maybe the High Republic is the start of the downfall. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would agree that this is, 200 years, it's all relative, right? I mean, it feels like it's a long way away, but it's technically, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that far away from where we are when we get to the Phantom Menace. But I would agree, like, they don't have the gritty look that we saw from, Qui-Gon Jinn looks like a bum, right? Yeah. He looks like he's just rolled right out of the streets on Tatooine or dancing somewhere, right? And these guys are, they look very regal. They got very nice threads, very clean, very cut, just very different. And so I don't know. Hopefully, we don't get too much of the air of almightiness, I guess, or I don't know. I don't want to. I hope they're not like pompous. I guess from reading the characters synopsis of each of them, it doesn't sound that way. It definitely sounds like there's some that are very good at what they do. They're amazing. I think they mentioned that. What's her name? Avar Chris. I'm going to get these names eventually here because I'm going to have to. But Avar Chris and Stellan Gios, the two attractive-looking male and female of the group, in my opinion, they are the ones that have paired up many times together, and they're a force to be reckoned with whenever they are together. So they definitely sound like they're going to be, very powerful. I think they try to set the stage to say they've got a lot of flaws, and they're definitely going to be exposed. So hopefully we'll be able to relate to them. And I think that's the one thing I'm concerned about is hopefully they're relatable, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. It looks good. Are you excited about this? I don't we don't want to have a lot of Star Wars coming, right? This is all we got for the near future. But are you going to jump in 2 feet with this thing?
I am cautiously optimistic with the High Republic. I want to jump into it. And I feel like there's more hope with the coordination that it seems like the Project Luminous team did with this one. I'm really hopeful because of seeing what they did. I feel better going into this than looking back, seeing the sequel trilogy. I felt a little less cohesive than what I expect this will be. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I want to jump into it because it's brand new territory. If it would have been a little bit further back, I'm all in. I'm good with it. But
yeah,
I'm going to dip my toe in the water. I'm definitely going to check it out. I just want to see first.
No, that's fair. I'm all in. I'm not even wearing clothes. I'm just jumping right in.
Cannonball
it. Yeah. And I'm excited. The character that I think I'm most excited about, believe it or not, is Avar Chris, because I like this. When I played like World of Warcraft, I always played these paladins, and I played like these super, I don't really like the middle ground, although I think it's cool. I like Dark Jedi or Gray Jedi and all that stuff. But there's something to be said about people that are on the extreme ends of something. And whether that's somebody that's just pure evil, that's always fun to watch sometimes. Or conversely, on the other spectrum, the other side of the spectrum, somebody that's just pure good, and seeing them struggle with that, I've always enjoyed. And the way they made Avar Chris out to be is, the best of the best. She is like the highest level of what you would expect the Jedi Order to be. And we've never really seen that. We've gotten even the Jedi that we know, even some of the best Jedi that we know, they've all got their flaws, and they are all sometimes tempted and all that. So I just would like to see how much this character, if that is truly the way she is, how much she struggles with everyone else, and just the the conflict there that can maybe come about from that. So she's the one I'm looking forward to the most. And then it's probably Loden Greatstorm, because they did mention that he's got a dry sense of humor, a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
And he has a look of like just sarcasm, like dripping with sarcasm. So I'm pretty excited about that. All right. Well, that's all we had. If you get a chance, take a look at it. Again, it's pretty short, but it does give you some more information about it. And of course, they're going to be releasing tons and tons of this stuff as we get closer to the release date for the books very soon. All right, let's talk about books and get into our main topic. So this is we're going to go through the book. First off, Phil Shostak, if you're listening to the show, you did an amazing job once again, my friend. This is now the third one. I mean, I think he started with The Force Awakens. He did Last Jedi. This one, I thought he may have did the solo one too. I didn't pull that one. Nonetheless, these are great books. And the best thing about these books that I can say off the top, and maybe Josh, if you can give me your overall thoughts here in just one second. The best thing about these books that I've always found is, you open them, and if you've never really had a chance to look at them, you may be going in and expecting just to see really cool artwork. And yes, there is. There is no shortage of really cool artwork in these books. However, the one thing that keeps me coming back is all of the insight into the development of the movie, and where there's so much information that Shostak shares with you about how things were laid out, decision points, some of the context of why decisions were made one way or the other. It really just helps to kind of paint that picture. And being one of these kind of completionists, I really need that stuff. If you've ever listened to The Basement, I like really dive into a lot of the gory details about why things are the way they are and how things came to be. And this book has no shortage of that. So from that perspective, I would say, if that's your thing and you really just want to know more and have that kind of sly look on your face because you know more than the guy next to you because you've read this book, this is certainly the book for you. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful book beginning to end. So, but what did you think? I mean, is this your first one, or have you bought them before? And overall, what's your opinion of these books, or in this one particularly?
No, I have them all. I even have the ones from the original trilogy, the first edition ones.
Yeah.
I get every single one of these. They used to run a little bit close to the visual dictionary as far as the ones that I enjoyed the most. But over the past few, especially the ones that Phil's done, surpassed the visual dictionary for me. Just because, there's a lot of things. I like the little stuff they do in here, like some of the storyboards and the camera movements that they show. That's really cool. They'll throw that in here. It's an easy read. The most you're going to get as far as text is setting up a new chapter of a full page. And then mostly it's just captions. It's easy to read and easy to get through. The thing I like most about these is it's like a full on ride with your imagination. Cause we all have that headcanon, and some of us even do fan fiction. And so you look at some of these images that they didn't use, or maybe spawn different ideas, and it kickstarts a lot of us thinking, how could this story go in all sorts of directions, thousands of directions, and your mind just can't keep up with where this could go. And that's what I love about it. You look at one page and you could be thinking for 30 minutes about different stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
They're amazing books.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. There have been many times. I mean, I've had this book now since Wednesday of last week, I think is when it finally arrived at my doorstep. And I will pick this book up. I've already read it. I don't know how many times. And I say read it. I mean, I've literally picked it up and read every page. But you go back to it and there's just always something new you did not catch before. And on multiple pages, not like one thing. I mean, there's plenty of things, just little details here and there that a lot of these artists, put in there. And so I just want to say also, there's so many artists that contributed to the all of the images that we have in the book. Too many for us to name, but I mean, thank you guys. I know Klein is like a big one, and there's a number of them. Chang is obviously has a lot of inspiration here and had a lot to do with it as well. But I mean, these guys are just some of the best in the world. I mean, and as you would expect, right? You've got the best people and talent in the world working on this stuff. Who wouldn't want to come and draw Star Wars for concept art, right? So yeah, I mean, again, hats off to everybody that contributed to the book, all of the artists. It's just unbelievable how much great stuff and content is in here. So, but let's talk about something we were kind of touching on earlier. I want to start with early on, and we're going to try to give you the page numbers as we can, so you can reference them later if you'd like, or if you're following along, you can do that. But and Josh did a better job than I did. I don't have all the page numbers on mine. So, but I want to start talking about the immaculate reality that is mentioned on pages 11 and 12. And this is early on in the intro. Mm-hmm. And to kind of summarize, I mean, I won't get into the whole thing, but this is a term that I don't know if Phil came up with this or not. But he mentions like the hidden fortress. And we all know, if you follow Star Wars and you know kind of the origins, this is one of the huge inspirations, if not one of the biggest inspirations from a story perspective. But the hidden fortress was something story-wise, there's a lot of elements and a lot of beats that are very similar. But the one thing that stood out for me when he mentioned this was the look of the hidden fortress, and that you have these characters. Normally, when you think of like feudal Japan, you think of everything clean and crisp and clean lines and all that. And really, if you watch Hidden Fortress, you've got these characters that are dingy. They're very dirty. They're very normal, I guess. They don't look. They kind of stand out in that way. And I always felt like with the original trilogy, especially, that was one of the more endearing things about it, is the look of it all. Nothing looked perfect. Everything looked worn in. Everything looked familiar yet very different. And a lot of that is captured in the art. In some ways, that extended into the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and also in the prequel trilogy. I think there was a good balance there. I mean, they had to change a little bit here and there because there were different times. But that immaculate reality goes one step further and says that, there's a lot of things that are very familiar to us. I think he mentioned that George Lucas was wanting, it was very common for people to go, okay, this is a futuristic movie and we need lots of straight lines and we need lots of, futuristic looking tables that look really weird. Yeah. And Lucas was grounded more on I think the example he used was, let's use a German flak gun to model our guns after, or let's use a Luftwaffe fighter or something, right? All these World War II references. And it was that idea that really grounded a lot of the art and what we know to be and what we know to feel like Star Wars, because it is relatable, because we've seen it before. It's just slightly been altered. And I think that's where it all kind of plays into that immaculate reality that he was trying to speak to there.
Yeah. And that immaculate reality term, I think it was Kurosawa that came up with that. I don't know if he came up with that term, but I know that he came up with the parts of that term. So, yeah. And it's clear that, I mean, their influences not only with George Lucas from Kurosawa, but those who worked on Star Wars after George, trying to preserve his legacy. If you look in the book later, we see a direct influence of Kurosawa on the Snowy City on Kajimi, where they're doing a tribute to the city of Kyoto, where we know Kurosawa made a lot of films. So it's like part of that immaculate reality is, and I think Doug Chiang even said it, it's setting the rules of the world first. That's the first part of it. And Doug says in his foreword, we were all guests in George's sandbox. He set the rules and marked the boundaries. But that other part is exactly what you said. You have to be grounded in reality. And Doug mentions that also, talking about this. Doug mentions the two big components of immaculate reality. He says you have to be grounded in reality, and the movie sets have to be rooted in real places. It's not enough just to, and I'm kind of going off here, but it's not enough just to have like your clean lines. You got to throw some dirt on it, or you got to put something in the wrong spots. But no, you're exactly right. That as far as this immaculate reality, this thing's just dripping with it.
Yeah. And then the other thing that stood out for me from that, and I don't know if it plays into this or not, is just George didn't want everything to be symmetrical. He wanted everything to be different, and everything is so different in Star Wars that it stands out. Like everything stands out, right? You don't have one piece within a shot that stands out more than the rest. And there may have been, I think there was probably an exception here when we get to like the Oracle. I keep talking about the Oracle, but the Oracle for me was like one of the few things I've ever seen from a concept art that just felt like it was a little too far and didn't exist in Star Wars. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess. I mean, I'm willing to change and we'll go with the flow. But for the most part, everything is just so, well structured. Everything is so well done. So everything is I won't say everything is over the top, but when everything is so well done like this, that it all kind of blends in together and nothing stands out. I think that's really kind of why we like the stuff that we see in Star Wars. And that's why we get stuck looking at a picture for 30 minutes, because there's just so much to take in. There's a lot going on in these things. Okay, let's talk about the opening of the book, because I thought it was interesting too. And just to kind of set the stage, and Josh just mentioned it, but every one of these sections of the book, every like chapter, I guess, if you will, has a forward on there or some text around it, and it kind of sets the stage. And so it breaks up into like props, and it breaks up into the character designs and all that. So, but early on, it was interesting. They start the book with a lot of the artwork that was not in the Last Jedi because we didn't see it. And quite simply, and I'll jump ahead a little bit here because one of the things that I felt like was, I'd say, a con for this book. I don't know. That's probably not fair. But one of the things I didn't like was the fact that it did not have a lot of the artwork for some of the more memorable scenes at the very end of the movie. And that was done because they figured, well, this book was going to print 6 months before the movie came out. And the reality is they didn't want for a lot of the big moments to be spoiled. And so they weren't included in this book. And so the same thing happened with The Last Jedi. We got a lot of the artwork that we didn't see in that book here at the very front of it. And some of this is amazing stuff. So if there's any chance that we'll ever get the stuff that was not included in this book for The Rise of Skywalker, I really hope that they put it out there somewhere, because if it's as good as this stuff, even if it's, yes, it's just the Emperor and we've already seen the Emperor before, or even if it's just, I don't know, whatever it is, I just have a feeling like it's going to be worth the wait, and hopefully they'll release this in some way. But anything stand out for you that from the, I know you said you've got all of the other ones, but, and you probably read The Last Jedi one a number of times, but anything that you want to go over or stood out for you that came from the artwork that was included from The Last Jedi?
Before they did the artwork in the text that they gave before they presented all the artwork, they talk about The Last Jedi being filmed over a certain schedule.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how many intense sequences they filmed there at the very end. The Ben Solo flashbacks, the Luke versus Kylo, the throne room, all of that was filmed towards the end of the shooting schedule. And I just think, man, if you were part of that crew and you were filming all those amazing scenes from The Last Jedi there at the very end of your shooting schedule, that's just, to me, that's really cool that you would get to experience that on the set. The artwork that stands out, the first one was on page 22, where you've got Rey in the cave. And I didn't catch it at first, but it's right there in front of you. Kylo's there, but Obi-Wan Kenobi's off to the left-hand side. I thought that was really cool.
It's like, oh, hey, look at him.
I don't get it, but yeah, that's kind of cool. The one that really, really stood out was it's Luke's standoff with the First Order. I think it's on page 29. And what stood out, though, was there's a little difference. I think Luke's in his ceremonial outfit as opposed to
the white garbs on there.
But that standoff, it's just amazing how much Rian Johnson made that film look as gorgeous as this artwork. I can't believe he pulled that off. That's what really stood out for me on some of this. Return of our Last Jedi stuff.
Yeah, no, I would agree. There's and that's I felt that way as I was reading. If you go back and look at The Last Jedi the art of, and that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, you're right. There and who were we talking about? We were talking about this just recently. Every shot, I think it was in the last show we were talking about this, but every shot of the Last Jedi is just amazing. I mean, it's like it's a picture in itself. And so there's so much good stuff in here from The Last Jedi that we didn't get a chance to see. So if you get a chance and you haven't picked this one up, you need to do yourself a favor, especially if you're one of the Last Jedi fans. I think you owe it to yourself to pick this up and take a look at it. There was one thing that I could say it bothered me, but there was a comment in here, and I don't have who wrote it or who said it, but it said Star Wars doesn't always have to end in some badass sword fight. I would agree. It doesn't have to. But that said, I don't think it's a wrong thing to say it can't. And I just hope I do like The Last Jedi. I've got some problems with it, but again, I'm not going to talk about those now. But I do like it, and I think it as going forward when we get into more Star Wars movies and all that, I hope they still give us the stuff that we like. I hope they continue to give us the stuff that we fell in love with, and not constantly keep changing the game for the sake of progressing it. Do it every so many years, and maybe we were due with The Last Jedi. But I do hope Star Wars continues to be grounded in sword fights, and I do hope it continues to be grounded in, spaceship fights, TIE fighters and X-Wings, or some variation thereof, right? I mean, those are the things that, resonated with me as a kid. They've held true this many years later because they're resonating with my children. So hopefully we don't deviate too far from that. But yeah, it's right. It doesn't have to, but it's okay if it does, I guess is all I want to say.
Well, 7 out of 9 do, so it's...
Yeah,
there's a successful formula there.
Yeah, there is a successful formula. Let's see. On page 26, I think and so quickly the stuff that you get in here from Last Jedi. You get some stuff about the burning tree, Luke on crate. We've talked about the cave, Leia Poppins. You finally get this. They show you that, and that looks pretty much right out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda's return. I called it the last temptation of Luke Skywalker. That part's in there as well, where he almost kills Kylo Ren or Ben Solo at the time. Snoke's death. You get some artwork from that. The Holdo maneuver, which I thought was cool. You can kind of see that. That pretty much looked exactly like it did right in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, the Battle of Great. But on page 26, you also get igniting the green, which I thought was awesome. So they show, I'm trying to go back now. They show a picture of Kylo Ren and Rey fighting the Snoke's guards, the Praetorian guards, and she's holding a green lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, sometimes this stuff is really early on, right? They maybe have a loose idea or loose direction, and so they go with it, and they don't even know, the story's not even written that says whether she has a blue versus green, yellow lightsaber, and so it's kind of the artist's, it's up to them to kind of, they get free will, right, to kind of interpret that however they want to. But I thought just the contrast here, I thought was amazing. I love the green and the red together, fighting against the Praetorian guards, but of course we didn't get that. So
that's a good catch. And that's what I'm talking about with these art of books. Like when I saw that, I did not catch that when you sent the show notes, but looking at it now my mind is everywhere. Like, how'd she get that? Who gave it to her? Is that Luke's? Is it a new one? You know, like I got to turn the page now.
Yeah. How did they get there? Let's talk about, let's see. Next thing I got is, on page 35, it's interesting. They're talking about the conversation, that happened on May 12th, 2014. This is a great dialogue here, and it's got a number of people contributing. So you've got Pablo Hidalgo, Dave Filoni, John Knoll. Everybody should know him pretty well. And then you've got Kiri Hart. But this conversation is very enlightening. So again, this is 2014, right? So Doug Chang says, since the three films are a female-driven story, where's Leia in episodes 8 and 9? As Luke's twin, she should have the Force. Maybe she's the nurturing character that overcomes the final evil. Maybe that's the thing that we are missing. Then Pablo says, I could imagine her being the one to break through our villain. Filoni, what happens with Kylo and what he does to his father is structurally not a redeemable act. There's no coming back from that, the way he does it currently. But I've never seen the mother figure try to do it, and maybe she could. Then John Knoll chimes in and says, the super intriguing setup in Empire, that boy is our only hope. No, there is another. I feel cheated that this really didn't go anywhere. Maybe Yoda is really talking about what happens with Leia in 30 years in the future. So this, I mean, the fact that this conversation actually happened is, I thought was amazing because, I mean, how many of us as fans have had this conversation or have talked about these kinds of things? And we've certainly speculated to no end on this show about what could possibly be and hypothesized and theorized on all these different things as the movies were, or 7, 8, and 9 were coming together. But I love that this whole idea that Leia was the other. And I want to get your thoughts on this. When you so going back to Return Jedi now, I guess when you saw that, even now, was it always in your mind that Leia was the person that they were speaking to? And was that just is it any different now than it was at the end of Return of the Jedi for you? Did that mean anything different to you then?
I never put it together with the sequel trilogy about that line relating to how she acts now. Yeah. But he's right. You do feel cheated with that line. When John Knoll says, I felt cheated with that line, he's not wrong. I mean, you do, if you stop, especially at 6, you do feel cheated with that line because you get nothing. You get nothing from it. You don't get much from it as far as payoff, if that's what they're talking about. What bothered me about this whole conversation, I would say it bothered me. I cringed a little when Filoni said it. He said that the audience's expectation is on Luke. And when it proves not to be true, it's way more powerful. And I get what he's saying. He's not wrong there, but I don't like taking that approach to Leia. I mean, if you're going to make Leia the focus of the sequel trilogy, which I'm totally fine with, I think that's a great idea. You should raise her up and not diminish Luke. Like they should be, you shouldn't put one down to raise the other up. Make her awesome and make Luke awesome and make it focus on exactly. Cause I like the Skywalker saga of being, prequels Anakin, originals Luke, and sequel being Leia. That's a great idea. But what it really does though, it shows you that this conversation, it shows you just how detrimental losing Carrie Fisher was to the sequel trilogy.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I did like, and so I've always, ever since I came on the show, right after The Force Awakens, I always felt it had to be Leia who ultimately pulled Kylo Ren back into the light. And I felt like she was the only one that honestly could do it. I mean, you can go back and listen to those shows where I was going on and Mike was just slamming me down, I think. But anyways, I always felt like it was going to have to be her. Like, I don't see how anybody else could really have pulled him back. And he's not Vader. He's not Anakin. So it's a different story here. But it's later on in the book also that we get JJ saying that maybe it's the optimist in me, but I would like to think that anyone, even someone who does the most horrendous things, is redeemable. And certainly because his mother, Leia, is a believer that there is still light in him, it's hard to imagine that she would be wrong about him. And I have to agree with JJ here. Like, if Leia, as much as we all love her and we love Carrie Fisher and they're one and the same, if she feels like he's worthy of redemption, then to me, that's enough. I mean, you can say all you want about how horrible of a person he is and all the stuff that he did and whether that was him doing it or not, or ultimately if he's still responsible and you still made I don't even care. If Leia in Mom says is redeemable, then fine, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Come back to the light. And I always felt that way going into this movie. So, and I think that's why it stings so much. And I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but I think that's why this movie stung so much, is because we finally got that moment and it kind of went nowhere. But
yeah.
All right. Anyways, so that's that part. Let's talk about the character designs. So we'll get into these, and there's a lot of them. I mean, they give you a lot of different background character designs. But let's start with Rey. And I want to look at this is page 37, where we get was it Rey Skywalker? Is what I have here. I'm trying to follow along. Yeah, but Rey Skywalker here. I do like this, and they just recently posted this. If you follow Phil on his Twitter account, he posted a side-by-side image of her in this picture here on page 37, and it's what we see. It's her. It's Rey in her white outfit, but she's got the hood on, which looks very familiar. Yeah. To the hood that Princess Leia wears in Episode 4, and that was by design. And that's where the inspiration that was drawn from was from that as well. But I guess of all of these looks, I mean, they're all amazing. Which one stood out for you? I guess which one did you like the most for Rey?
The one that you mentioned, I really like that one. It reminded me first of Padme, though, with kind of the outfit from the shoulders down. It felt like her Episode 2 outfit. But you're right. Yeah, the hood, definitely Leia. Another one that stood out is on page 36. The middle picture of her looks like that ceremonial Luke Skywalker outfit a little bit.
Right. Are you talking about the gray one there?
Yeah. But no, the one on page 37 that you mentioned, I like that one the best. It's just completely different than what we've seen before.
There's another quote in here from 2014 that's right underneath this exact image of Leia. And it's from Pablo Hidalgo, who says, "I like the idea that she's going to be our Skywalker, but she's not a Skywalker. Then for our purposes, the Skywalker," and that's in quotes, "is really a metaphor. It doesn't have to be something that directly connects to blood." And so this is, I mean, you think about it, that's again, 2014. So say what you will, it at least was something they were definitely talking about, even way back then, about whether or not, you know, who are Rey parents and what is her lineage and what does that mean? These are conversations that were happening even way back then. So from that perspective, it says that they've been thinking about it, right? This wasn't a last minute decision to go, oh, let's just make her a Skywalker at the, final year as we get into Episode 9. So that was cool. Finn's got some good character designs. I thought the ones on the right, I didn't really like the yellow one there. It's too like hip hop.
It's Attack the Block Finn. That's what it is.
Yeah. But he does have some pretty cool designs. I do like where they settled in. Maybe that's just me, but I like the one where he's got the raincoat on.
Yeah.
Where he's just kind of standing there staring somebody down. I can see him doing that. I mean, that's very cool. The bottom right-hand corner also has the four of them. It's a scene that obviously didn't happen, but when they get to, I think it's Pisana, and they're at the festival, I think originally they were going to have them wear these disguises that have hoods on, and they're all wearing hoods. But the funniest thing is you've got C-3PO. He's got a hood on too. And in the caption, it mentions that they chose not to go with that because he stands out too much because he's all gold or whatever. But it's a cute picture. I mean,
they look like Jawas.
Yeah, exactly. They do. They look like really tall Jawas in those disguises. I thought Poe's outfits were all pretty cool. They ended up landing with the Trixie version, but there were some elements in there of him being more of a pilot, like more in pilot garb and the orange jumpsuits and, wearing Y-wing helmets and all of that. Great designs here.
I love that idea of Poe flying in a Y-wing in this one. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it said that too, that he originally that's where he was going to be in a Y-wing most of the movie.
But if he wears this outfit on page 41, it looks more like he stole a Y-wing because he looks like a bum.
Yeah, he does. He does. I don't know if they were going for the shady past,
right?
That was playing out here a little bit later. Those were all good. Let's talk about Lando. So Lando is, you kind of jump around. They've got some citizens in here. Oh wait, you brought something up that right before the show came on that I did not catch, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. We're talking about Ziggy Stardust. So what was it you found?
Page 46. So the first time I went through this, I saw the character on page 46. He's called Starman Pilot version 2. And Watt is the artist. Mm-hmm. And I thought Chiss. I was like, that's interesting. They could have brought that in there because he's all blue. He has orange hair. He has this big circle on his forehead. And he looks like David Bowie. And then today when I was prepping before the show, I looked at it again. I thought, holy crap, that is Ziggy Stardust. And sure enough, it is Ziggy Stardust. And he's called Starman, which Starman. I've had that song stuck in my head for the past hour now.
Yeah. Again, I have read this book, I don't know how many times, and it wasn't until like literally 5 minutes before we came on the air that he pointed that out, and I thought, holy cannoli, I did not catch that.
You got to think a guy like Watt put something up and just crossing his fingers, JJ doesn't catch it for a few for a few
You'll never guess what I snuck in. Lando's outfits are all pretty cool. They've got some in there for, the way we see him in his, I guess, traditional look with the cape and all that. But then we've got some alternate versions of him when he's the ally, I guess is how he was listed at some point in this, either in the script or in the pre-production notes. Interesting enough, and I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit, and I don't have the page number, but the cane that they show him wearing or holding, there is one image later on in the prop section that shows the cane that he's holding, and the top of it is made to look like one of the Bespin, I'm going to call it a space station. I don't know, I guess the technical term for it. But, it's got the long pillar and it's got the round saucer-like top that we would expect for a Bespin space station, mining station. But they made that, they made a cane that looked exactly like that. That was made from, what do you call it? Tiberian ore, or not Tiberian. I'm trying to remember the stinking name of it. But yeah, anyways, it's just cool. Little details like that they did. And then ultimately they settled on the character look that we got from Star Wars, Solo, a Star Wars story. I don't know. This is the one thing that I felt like I wanted to see him in a little something different. Mm-hmm. Is that wrong?
No. I mean, he's got the uncut gems thing going on with the with the yellow and the black.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, it's fluid. Doing the same one from Solo, but maybe they were thinking they could get us something different with the costume he wore to hide or to mask himself. But yeah, I agree. I would have rather seen him something. I like the blue. I like that's traditional, but something up on the top of page 49 with the two smaller ones where he's got just a completely different look. Yeah. Yeah. I like those.
I have if you turn the page on, let's see, 51, I just want to mention they've got the John Williams character design here. I don't know where I read this, and maybe I dreamt it. It could have been at 3 a.m. yesterday morning somewhere on the couch, but I want to say that it looks like these pens or whatever he's holding here. I didn't do the count, but I heard somewhere that if you count all of those, they're the exact same number of awards he's won. Like, what's the award that he wins? I don't know if it's an Oscar. It's something. One of the prestigious awards that he wins for that he's won over the years for his work. And I don't know if there's any truth in that or not, but it's cool if they went that far. But I like the fact that they included him in here.
Yeah. You're onto some. I remember that may have been in an article Phil put out recently, but I do remember reading that too. Yeah, there's some connection there with that.
That's cool. Let's talk about Zori Bliss, because here's another one that I love the design they landed on. Ultimately, I get it. all of these design, like how they even chose them, because some of these are amazing. How they narrowed it down is just an unfathomable task, to be honest. But it seems like from the beginning, JJ was set that he did not want her to show her face, and that he wanted her to be I guess he used the term Boba Fett, in that we saw the character, we never saw his face, and then there was a relationship there, that a pre-existing relationship with somebody else in the movie. And so obviously for Boba Fett, it was Han Solo, and here it was going to be Zori and Poe Dameron. But why did you cast Carrie? And I don't. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, she's an amazing actress. I think I don't know what she's won before. I know she's won a lot of awards, whether they're Emmys or Oscars. I don't know what she's won, but her caliber of acting is amazing. So I'm not saying anything there, but it just seems like with a character, with somebody like her, you would want to show her face more than just what we got in the eyeballs. Yeah. But it could have been anyone else. It could have been any actress if that were the case. I'm glad they picked her because I liked her, but I don't know.
And they've always had this Rocketeer thing going with the helmet, at least what they've given us here in this book. It seems like that has been an idea pretty consistent. Yep.
Yeah, there's some great textures too. You know, the metal with the fur. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that going on. Some great designs there. And then there's like this nightclub one over on page 56 at the top there. It looks like they're coming into a nightclub or leaving a nightclub of some sort.
Oh yeah, it is.
But I mean, it's very, very intimidating. And I think originally, I saw, at least maybe it was this book or somewhere else, but her character was supposed to be like a kind of a big hulking Jabba the Hutt figure kind of character. And eventually they kind of toned that down. She became, who she is. First, she was like a more robot looking, and JJ was like, we need to remove a lot of the technology off of her because it's going to be confusing. People aren't going to know whether or not she's a droid or if she's human or a humanoid of some sort. And so they toned that down and finally landed on the version that we got, which I thought was awesome. So
yeah.
Let's see. We get into Jannah. Jannah's got only a couple designs, and I would just say quickly, I think all of her looks are pretty darn cool. I like the use of the breathing apparatus. I don't know if you caught that, but they've made mention. There's a picture there where she's got one around her neck, and they're trying to call back to the breathing apparatuses that we see Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn use in Episode 1, which I thought was a good take. And that's kind of the thing, right? Through all of this artwork, these guys are well versed in Star Wars, right? These artists, and they call back to a lot of this stuff, and they do so much research. They're amazing talents to begin with, but the fact that they dedicate themselves so much to all of this and try to draw upon what's already been done, so they don't have to recreate it. And they lean on all the stuff that Chang did, and obviously Macquarie and all of that. So anytime they can go to that well and not have to reinvent the wheel, they certainly do that, and they just kind of take it up and tweak it and make it their own in their own unique way, which I thought's awesome.
Are those on page 59? Those hanging from her neck? It's not below her neck. Are those Imperial? What do you call them? Like rankings? Old Imperial rankings?
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Interesting.
It might, I don't know. It could be, they talked about this later on. They talked about how with the characters themselves, let me see if I've got it in my notes here, but that whole group, what were they called? Battalion 77, Company 77.
Company 77,
yeah. So originally the group was called Company 77, which, it's a take on Order 66, if you don't catch that, but it's also the same year that New Hope was released in 77. But they made mention in that article or somewhere on that same section that these folks, this Company 77, were basically living and surviving all of the remnants and all the salvage that they found from the Death Star, which is reflected in her look, especially in these designs here. I mean, she's only on screen for, all things considered, she's really not on the screen for very long. So we really don't get to look at her unless you're pausing. You don't get to see a lot of all the details, but everything from her visor to a lot of the trinkets that she's wearing, the stuff that other people that are hanging off of them. This is all scrap stuff that they've pulled from all of the wreckage and the remnants of the Death Star. So I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if those weren't Imperial something in some way. Just to kind of keep that going. Let's talk about Kylo Ren. And we don't, it's weird. It starts talking about, we get to see the masks here, and then it jumps a little bit later. You got to go all the way back. I think it's in the prop section, before we get the other helmets. But they have got a couple different versions of the cracked helmet and how that was getting put together. Early on, when Kylo Ren's character was finally released, like his design, and we saw it. I don't know if it was when it was leaked or when it was officially released, but the idea that he had this helmet that was cracked and you could see the light in it. I know there was a lot of people that were speculating, and I'm forgetting the name here, but the Japanese kintsugi. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's this type of like pottery where they take these broken pottery pots and I don't know, whatever. They put them back together and they use like a colored glue of some sort. I'm probably screwing this all up, but anyways, the look of that was actually the inspiration. And there was a lot of speculation when this came out and we first saw the helmet that this was somehow related and that the inspiration was drawn from that. To my knowledge, we never got confirmation. It's clearly the case. On page 61, they definitely go in there and confirm that, yes, that was the inspiration for it. I don't think they went as deep or as meta as some of that practice is for the Japanese, but they definitely drew inspiration from that. And they've got a couple different colors here. I mean, I have to say I like the red more, but I do like the way the yellow and the white look as well.
I also love that they reference that those red cracks on the helmet are kind of symbolic of the lava flowing on Mustafar. It's really cool. Yeah, really good idea.
Yeah. On that note too, they had also said the cracks originally weren't backlit, I guess, for lack of a better term, and that it looked flat. And so that's why they decided to add the light so it would kind of pop and stand out, and boy did it ever.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the high gloss. Well, for him, I'm not a fan of the high gloss. Vader's high gloss. Kylo seems he's more of a matte black kind of guy.
Yep. And that's the one they mentioned here. And I don't know, are these helmets, is one of these high gloss?
I think the one,
because later on,
it's later. Yeah. Later
yeah.
on
That's what I'm saying. Like they mention it here on this page, but isn't until later on that you actually see the helmets that they're talking about, which I thought were cool designs. They look more Vader-esque or Vader helmet-ish. And one is really like a high gloss matte looking or high gloss kind of sheen to it, which I thought was cool. But you're right. It looks almost like he's copycatting Vader at that point. What did you think about the Banana Republic look that Ben Solo's got going on over here?
So the text that's with it says this is something he'd wear under his clothes. I'm like, yeah, right. You can't get clothes on. He doesn't wear clothes.
You look, he's got underwear on.
Right.
I like the look. I mean, this is what we see him in at the very end of the movie, I think, right?
Yeah,
I mean, something very similar.
So. Yeah.
When he's removed the cape and everything, and he's, good boy Ben Solo all over again. But
minus the shirt, it's Last Jedi.
I don't think anybody stands off or stares off into the distance better than Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Like he's awesome. There's a couple of images of Rey as the dark Rey, I guess, or dark side Rey, but not many.
No,
at all,
not
which
many.
I thought was surprising.
And they look really good.
They do. I don't even know. I mean, I'd take all three of these, to be honest.
Yeah.
They've got one where she's holding two lightsabers. They've got another one where she's got a single bladed one. They got one where it's supposed to be, the cape is supposed to be like a pool of water or something like that, or she was originally going to be coming out of water or underwater. I don't know. But yeah, they don't spend a lot of time on her dark side look, but they are definitely there and very cool, very impressive looking. There are no shortage of what do they call them? There's new troopers here, the red guys.
Oh gosh, yes, lots of versions.
There's 8 million versions of this thing, and I don't know why we got so many. I mean, it's cool. That's not negative. There's no feedback there, because I can look at stormtroopers all day long.
The one on page 67 that is kind of like the new style, but it still has the old stormtrooper mouth on it. That just looks weird. I kind of like it, but it just looks weird.
It does. The mouth looks a little too small.
Yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, you can tell the Sith Trooper went through 8 billion revisions, and some of these are very, very minor. But if you look at it, yeah, they're definitely different. I didn't understand that there was I'll have to ask Phil about this. Not that I know him, but the Death Trooper on page 70. He's just like in there. I'm like, where did this come from? And I don't know if that was they were trying to draw inspiration from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Maybe.
I caught that. I don't like the design of this Death Trooper, but I like the idea that the Death Trooper advanced into the First Order. But this particular layout, I don't care for.
I think, probably one of my favorites is I guess it's on page 73. It's that Snow Trooper. It's a darker version. I think this is on the. Is it on the Rise of Skywalker art of Hold on a second. Bad radio. Bad podcasting. Bad podcasting. I was trying to pull the visual dictionary. No, see, and I think this originally on the cover, before they had an official cover for the visual dictionary for the Rise of Skywalker, they had this image on there.
Okay.
Because it stood out to me. And then the final version came out, and we've got one of the boy band members from the Knights of Ren. So, anyway, I do like this look, and it essentially is just it's a snow trooper, but he's got a cape. He looks menacing. It's very similar to the ones that we saw. It's kind of a combination between the ones we get from Empire Strikes Back and from Solo: A Star Wars Story. So, if you can visualize that. We get into a lot of the props. And my gosh, I don't know. We could do a whole show on the props, honestly, because there's so many of them. I mean, they break down the lightsabers and what there was a couple different versions of what the lightsaber was going to look like. After Rey had pieced it together. I mean, there's like 5 versions of that alone.
Oh yeah,
and they're just all slightly altered. Very small differences in what they did there. But I think the one thing for me that stood out in this section is the manuscripts, the ancient Jedi texts, right?
Right. The detail.
Yeah, dude. And they said there's 9 volumes of these. Like originally there was only 1, I think. And then, they actually had to create more of them. And then there was, some passages in here talking about there are people out there that are kind of like specialists, subject matter experts on creating fake journals for movies and stuff. And they ended up creating 9 journals of this stuff in there, which it's all in languages we don't know. It's not in Arabic or anything like that. So we can't even really decipher what it says. But this is the stuff that if you gave me 9 books of these, I would sit there and just go through every single one of them and look at these pages.
They're really pretty.
They're fascinating. And again, this is stuff where your mind starts to wonder, because I'm looking at, on page 79, it looks like there's a kyber crystal up there. Mm-hmm. And it looks similar to the kyber crystal that we saw in one of the Rebels episodes where they're transporting one of the ones that's going to the Death Star that's being built. And it's got figures and drawings and stuff like that. And makes you wonder, like, wait, so what are they talking about here? It does have a picture of the Wayfinder, and I think we see that in one shot, if I'm not mistaken, in the Rise of Skywalker, when she goes and grabs her journal early on. We do get a chance to see that. I'm trying to go through here. What else? There's a number of MacGuffin pictures.
They spent a lot of time on that.
They really did. And some of these are so intricate. Like, I mean, they're all done, via computer and digitally created, but the amount of detail and just these things look like they could work or do something, which I think is obviously pretty special.
They spend a lot of time talking about the MacGuffin being other things. The one that really stands out is the kill switch for all the First Order tech. What do you think about that? You like that idea?
I don't know. It seems to like the Phantom Menace, Phantom Menace. Yeah. Where they hit the main thing and it takes down all the droids. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said about, it's poetry, it rhymes and repeating and paying homage and all that. But I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
I liked more how it will eventually tie into Babu Frick's race, and his backstory used to be, he wasn't just a slicer. He was the creatures that were so small, they used to clean the exhaust ports or something on ships. And that's how I thought that tied into him. I liked that idea more, but I'm not so much for just like a kill switch that works everything.
There was one interesting, I'm going to forget this gentleman's name, but there's one guy that was charged with coming up with all of the weapons in the Rise of Skywalker, and they're all his design, which I think is just amazing that a single person came up with all of these, because they're all very different and they look awesome. We get into some of the more interesting props. I think were with Lando and Janna. So we talked about the cane, the Big Daddy cane that he was. I never actually went back and looked at it. but they called it on the cane itself. It said Baron Lando Calrissian.
Of course it does.
Right. Which I thought was really cool. And then they showed like a crossbow that he had, like a wrist crossbow. Jana was supposed to have like a grappling hook. And I think early on, one of the scripts had called for this moment where, excuse me, she fires it and it attaches itself and you get a swinging moment between her and I think it's actually, I don't know if there's a picture of this. I'm trying to remember if I saw this or not, or I just envisioned it. But I think she was going to be swinging on this thing. Maybe she has Finn with her. And my mind went to, okay, this is like a callback to episode 4.
Yep.
Maybe it's, I was thinking if they went through with this, I thought it would have been hilarious if you would have had Finn kiss Jana on the cheek and say good luck or for luck. And then they swang across and did something,
or
cool.
She slaps him.
Or she slaps him, right. It's actually not what you're expecting. That would have been awesome. Unfortunately, they got cut out. So but it looks like there's a scene in this later on, I think, and I'm forgetting, I don't think I have the page number written down, but I could have sworn I saw a picture of Finn like coming in Die Hard style, right? Swinging in, shooting through the window kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
So, yeah, my mind was trying to draw those two scenes together there.
The Cloud City cane looks cool. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
And isn't that fitting though? That's like the walking stick, right? For Cantina Cast. It's like Godfather 3, like they bring me back. Yeah, like we can't ever get away from the walking stick.
Yeah. There was a time when these shows were all about walking sticks and there wasn't much to them. So we've come a long way. No, those were good quality shows, funny shows. But yeah, you're right. It seems like every one of these sequel trilogies had a cane. Someone had a cane of some sort or a walking stick of some sort. Let's talk about the elephant in the room on page 95. This is the BB-8 tank. I don't know where
the guy, he had to have a blaster on that, right? He's just loving drawing something like that.
If you haven't seen this, I think I posted it in Discord. But I don't think we posted it on the social media sites, but this, if you haven't seen this, it's literally a BB-8. This thing must be about 50 feet tall, 60 feet tall. But it's made to look like a tank. So imagine BB-8, 60 feet tall with 4 turrets on its head and somebody at the top riding around this thing, which I think would be cool if they would have found a way to do this. And he's just having fun, right? I mean, they're just showing off now. We get into the Oracle. And this is creepy stuff.
This is messed up. There's some really messed up stuff in here.
Yeah. I've posted a couple of these on our social media pages. I mean, the one that they finally ended up with that I know was shot and filmed is creepy in itself. But there are other versions on here that they decided were not Star Wars like. It didn't fit into Star Wars, so they were too grotesque looking, I think was the word that was used. One had it looks like this, I don't even know. I'm looking at the one at the very top on page 96 where it didn't have eyes. The eyes were gone.
With flies.
But it was filled with flies.
Yeah.
And so the eyes looked like they were moving around, but it wasn't until the flies took off that you realized the movement was coming from the flies itself, which is just, grotesque. Weird.
They're all over the place. They've got things that are as potentially demented as the top of page 97, but then they go down to something that's really sweet that says it's very Studio Ghibli there at the bottom. It's just, they're all over the place with this. They had mentioned it earlier. Maybe it was at the beginning of the creature section where they thought about having Kylo, after visiting the Oracle, come back to the boardroom scene, and instead of throwing Bulio's head down, he throws like a head or a limb from the Oracle.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I do too.
I really like that.
Because it proves just how sinister he was, or how determined he was. Not only did he get what he wanted, he got the, I mean, because the way the scene would have played out is, and they talk about this, and we talked about this on the last show when we were talking about the novelization, because the scene is included in the novelization, but he does get the Wayfinder from the Oracle. And if that was the case, and that means he would have gotten it from the Oracle and then decided to kill the Oracle.
Yeah.
For no other reason other than to prove a point, hide his tracks. I mean, who knows? We don't know what it would be, and that's part of why I like it. It's like, why would he do that? Like, dang, what's going on in his head that he would go that far? But yeah, in Bulio, I mentioned this, and we were talking about this in Discord too. This is so sad. Bulio's design, which, by the way, if you don't know, was played by Mark Hamill. It was voiced by Mark Hamill. And this is the green-headed lizard guy with the horns coming out of his head. It says, "Win the war." That guy.
Yeah.
His design, according to this, was mostly predicated on fashioning in a way for Kylo Ren to be able to throw a severed head easily, carry it, and easily throw it onto a table. Like that scene, that moment was in JJ's head or Terry, I forget now who it was, but one of their heads. And they knew they wanted to have that scene in the movie, and it made it into the movie, but they had to figure out a way. Okay, so how do we what's the easiest way for him to grab this head? And so that's what that drove the design of Bulio himself. So as cool as he is, and he was a tool. I mean, his head was essentially a tool for the big payoff there.
They should have put that in the props section of this book. And they said it was too brutal to show somebody holding a head by the hair. So they had to come up with that, what you said. Yeah. It's wild.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. It's unpopular opinion. I cannot stand Claude.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
I don't understand this character. I think he's funny looking, but why, man?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with that. Bulio for me is the same. Like both of them, I'm just, meh.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. We talked about Kylo's helmets. We'll skip over that there. I put 1001 Dio-mations.
Good grief. They did, yes, I like that.
Yeah, so Dio, the robot droid. There are, I don't even know, I should have counted them and I didn't, but millions of designs for this little droid. And I don't know, there are some on here that I like more than his final design, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy how much this guy, I mean, it started with a duck, I think originally.
Mm-hmm. And
from there it spawned into different versions of whether it was treads. It looks, he had a Wally thing going on for a while there. He looks a lot like some of the droids that we saw in episode 4. There's one that comes to mind immediately. I thought it was interesting too. The inspiration was from Terrio's dogs, or one of his dogs. He had said that he had a dog that I think he rescued. And it had been treated horribly, had chains on him and didn't have any kind of social interaction or whatever the case was. And when he rescued that dog was just always trying to find himself all over again, and kind of always looked up to whoever it was that who had just saved him, which I guess was Terrio. But that's kind of what we got from Dio. Dio has been left alone for so many years on Ochi's ship and really has had no interaction whatsoever. And here comes these group of people that kind of turn him on and bring him back to life. And so he feels almost indebted, and he ends up following BB-8, looking up to BB-8, literally and figuratively looking up to BB-8 from that point on. And that was supposed to mirror, the relationship with this dog. So I thought it was really sweet that he did that. I don't think we got that from the movie at all. And unless you read this, I don't think it's even covered in the novel, not that I remember anyways. But yeah, stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of why I like these books. Babu Freaks. A lot of versions of Babu Freak. I have to say I like the one that they came up with, the final version.
I agree.
And some of these look like he's a mouse. I think at one point there's a couple of versions where he looks like an insect, some kind of praying mantis or a roach. A lot of different versions, but I think
they gave the artist free will, definitely free will.
Yeah, it almost feels like they said, "Hey, we need a small character. Can you get that done?" And that was pretty much all the direction that was given. And the one that he finally landed on, the hood and the visor or the helmet, came to him like late at one night, just out of nowhere, out of the blue. There's a character on here. I want to mention this real quick. So Lazu Lerona, in this book, I don't think they ever mention her name. That I only know that name because the character comes up in the visual dictionary. But this is a character at the very end of the movie where they're kind of showing everybody's just they're landing back at the the resistance base. Excuse me, the resistance base there. And we start seeing all these different characters celebrating and everything. But we see this character very briefly in a couple shots. And two things that stood out for me about this character. One, I like the design. And two, it's played by, is it Charlotte Louise Baker? Oh my gosh.
I know I know she's done a lot, but I think the one I recognized her from was Solo. Was she like she's like the assistant?
Yeah, she's got like the white, she comes up in that movie when they first get to, what do you call it?
Dryden Voss's ship, right?
Yeah, Dryden Voss's ship. She kind of walks up and starts talking, but she's all pale white looking.
Yeah.
That's the same actress that plays her. And she follows us on our social media pages and we follow her. So, I think it's cool that they included her. She's an amazing woman. If you don't follow her, you need to follow her. But the other thing too was that it was interesting that this design came from an old design for L337.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, again, it's one of these things that it's a common theme, I think, with Star Wars is a lot of the artwork. They repurpose a lot of this stuff. Nothing ever gets thrown away because you never know when you're going to need it. And why reinvent all of this stuff all over again? Let's talk about the art design. There's all kinds of stuff that happens here, but there's a number of great shots of Luke and Leia sparring, fencing, I guess.
Yeah, they're definitely, they get almost like fencing gear on.
Yeah. And early on, we skipped over, but early on they've got a couple different helmets that were done for concept art for this fencing or sparring scene. But every one of these shots looks awesome.
Yeah, it really does.
They and JJ was kind of looking for the right look, I guess. So I mean, at one point they're battling on trees, and then they're battling on just in the forest and
a skull. At one point, they were going to battle on a skull.
Yep. Yeah. Those are great. We get some artwork from Rey's training, which the one on 136 is my favorite one.
On the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, it just looks so right seeing her with a double-bladed lightsaber.
It does. And that stance is very, I mean, we go back to all of the samurai movies and the Kurosawa films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen that look before. And in fact, that it's done in black and white.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And she's standing there and she's posing and she's got a number of these training droids that are kind of look like they're about to make their way towards her. So all of that is pretty great. What did you think about I got a question, and I don't know if this is not controversial, I hope not, but the base.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we get the resistance base on Ajin Kloss in the Rise of Skywalker, but and we learned that they wanted the blockade runner to kind of be the base or be symbolic of a resistance base. But I was really digging the concepts that they'd come up with, and one particular one was the idea that they were in this massive tree, right, or they were in massive beyond anything that's to our scale. Like you can't even put your head around when you see it. You're like, what kind of tree is this? It's so huge. Or the idea that they're in the side of a mound or a forest mound of some sort, whatever. But I say that because prior to this, I always loved the idea that these bases were kind of cleverly hidden in areas or repurposed buildings or settings. We had, the base on Yavin 4 in episode 4. They had this makeshift base that they kind of dug into the snow on Hoth. You had Dakar that was reused again in The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi, they went back to Crate, which was a base that got mentioned in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, right? So this idea that they kept going to these abandoned bases that were long hundreds of years ago used, and no one would ever think to reuse them again. I always liked that idea, and yet with the Rise of Skywalker, I think it was JJ that finally decided that they were going to kind of abandon that, if you will, and go to a more symbolic base of we're all here gathered around the blockade runner because that calls back to episode 4. But did you like that idea, or did you feel like it would have been cool to have another base that we, got to see for the first time?
No, I like the carved in the tree idea. It makes sense because the resistance, the rebellion, whoever, they're on the run. They're constantly on the run. And so they need a blind is what they need. They can't just be out in the open or have their ship just land. And I get using the blockade runner as a base. That's cool. But I agree with you. I like it being carved into a tree. It fits with the whole way that the rebellion or the resistance works, and that they're constantly on the run. They have to make do with what they got, and this is going to work for us. Yeah.
There's a stupid scene on page 149 of Maz and Chewie hugging.
So that is. Hey, look at the one on page 143.
143.
So, at the bottom of 143, it's like the celebration scene.
Yeah.
But in the bottom right-hand corner, BB-8's there too, but in the bottom right-hand corner off to the sides, 3PO and R2, that feels really conclusive to the saga. Like, I love that right there. I would have made that my final shot. You're pulling out C-3PO and R2 are watching them celebrate, because we all have that theory. R2 is documenting this anyway. He's telling the story. That just seems so fitting. I love that picture.
Yeah, that's a good catch. I honestly hadn't seen that. I mean, my eyes are drawn to BB-8 because he's kind of front and center in that shot, along with the crowd, obviously. But I hadn't really looked and seen. They're almost in shadow to some extent, right?
They are, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. A good catch. That would have been awesome. That's why you should have directed this. Let's see. Let's talk about. I mean, there's other stuff on here. There's a lot of footage. There's a lot of pictures in here from Ajahn Kloss. So definitely spend some time. I mean, your mind just wanders for days on end with that stuff. We get into the First Order aesthetic as well. In some of these shots here a little bit later. I mean, they've got more stuff in here with like the Knights of Ren and all that. But I want to jump over to the aesthetic for the First Order because it's interesting how many different variations they went through here. And what I'm talking about is when we finally get to Kylo Ren's ship, his command ship, or the destroyer that he's on, and he has that board meeting where he throws Bulio's head on the table. They give you some background, or they give you some shots or designs of what the interiors look like on the First Order ship. And they're very clean. I especially like this chair. It doesn't seem like very practical or at all, but the chair that's on page 150 or 167, I think, top left-hand corner, that for whatever reason, this reminds me of like the Old Republic. Like there are plenty of things in old Star Wars lore that look very similar to this. Just that triangular design.
It almost looks like the Wayfinder. Yeah, right. So I can't remember if his ship, the flagship for Kylo, was the one that they actually showed in the film for 165 on page 165. I don't think it was, but that top pic, not the very top with the two small ones, but the middle picture. Yeah. It has that broadsword look, kind of like his saber does. I thought that was really cool to kind of tie all that together. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, you're right. Those it's kind of got those pieces that are jetting out in the sides there. Yeah, I don't think it looked like that, his final one, but
I think they said they went back to just the Force Awakens one, possibly.
We talked about this in the last episode, but there are some eerie scenes in here of Chewbacca enslaved and Kylo Ren standing in front of him. I posted these on social media, so I think there's only 3 of them, but all 3 of those are very powerful. That one in the middle, though, and I had to crop this a little bit, I think, when I posted this one, but that one's really creepy because I think they drew the inspiration from the interrogation droid and said, what if there was a room with these, like all of the needles and everything sticking out on all around this circular room, and that was an interrogation room? Like, man, that is like creepy. It's like something out of Tommy. If you ever seen Tommy and Tina Turner and you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I see this picture, I think, is this the same guy that drew those demented Oracle pictures? Because we need to get rid of him.
Yeah. I don't know why I did a Tommy reference that was not in the show notes, but go on. Sorry.
No, it's hard because these pictures just break my heart seeing it. I hate seeing these pictures with Chewie like this, but it's a really clever idea to do the interrogation droid as a room. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. That's for sure. Excuse me. Let's jump ahead. I want to jump over to, let's see, starting on page 170. We really start to get inside this, the First Order designs and some of the looks they came up with. Some of these are really cool. They kind of remind me of like the lighting and the color remind me of like Empire Strikes Back when they have the big scene there in the carbonite chamber area room. So very, very reminiscent of that. But then we get into the White Room, which I thought always stood out for me, and it definitely stands out. I mean, I think it's meant to stand out. But it was something that I think caught all of our eyes when we saw the trailer, and then obviously in the movie, the way the contrast between this White Room and it being the room that of all things Kylo Ren is in, right? Somebody who is bathed in darkness and, you know, retreats to the light, if you will. I think there's probably something there, right? Some symbolism there. Maybe echoing of something to happen here in the future. But this idea of the White Room, And I called this section The Rise of 2001, A Space Odyssey, because on page 173, they mention a lot of references, and we've had them before, but they mention a couple things here that were, I guess, callbacks to 2001, A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. So the White Room is a callback to, if you've ever seen 2001, good for you. If you've not, you need to go see it. You do yourself a favor. I think what you know this more than I do. Isn't it always ranked in the top 20, always. 30 films, great all time?
Always. Always.
It's masterful. Some people will call it boring, but it's all about what you go in with. But it's a masterful film visually. And at the very, very end of the movie, Stanley Kubrick puts one of the main characters, Dave Bowman, into this like white room. And it stands out because up until then, the movie's all kind of all over the place. It starts off in prehistoric times, and then you're set in space for almost, the rest of the 90% of the film. And then the last 5%, 1% of the movie takes place in this white room out of nowhere. And it's such a drastic contrast from everything else. But that's where they drew this inspiration from. And so I know I'm kind of belaboring that a little bit, but that's exactly where this came from, was this inspiration. But there's more to that. You'd had one that we talked about before we came on the air. Was it the
HAL 9000? Yeah, he's somewhere in here. I think he actually made it to the final cut.
He did, yeah. I think they mentioned on the buttresses, and I'm going to try to say that without acting 13 years old. But the buttresses, so those are the angular things that, you're an architect. Why am I doing this? But they're like the angular things that hold up the sides of the walls. How's that?
Yeah. Well, I'm an engineer, but our arch enemies are architects, so I'll pretend like I don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay. But those things, they've got I think on all of them in the actual file, and I've actually not gone back since reading this to check it, but they've got HAL 9000s on all of them, and you can see them. I think the closest we get in the art book is at the bottom of page 172. That the big picture there at the bottom, if you look in the top right hand corner of that pic, you can see the red lights up there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's it or specifically, but they do mention that it made it to the final show or final movie. So those are in there. We also learned what was the other ones? The HAL 9000s, the EVA pods. Mm-hmm. We saw that in episode 4 on Tatooine at the Cantina. There's one laying there on the ground. So that's always been an Easter egg, but they threw some more in this movie. Whether or not it made it, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to go back and look. And then the flooring itself. And we're really getting into the weeds here, but like the flooring that we see in the movie is very reminiscent of the flooring that we see in the White Room from 2001. So all that to say, these guys are obviously heavily inspired by that film, as they should be. Yeah. So it's amazing. I think it's just great that this stuff makes it in there like that.
I love the White Room. I really do like it a lot. I got to give JJ a lot of props for what he did with this scene, because they mention in this book, I believe, that it's all about, it's balance. It's the two. They're a dyad. It's yin and yang, and yin and yang is really the thing that made me think about this. When I think is it on Pisana where they encounter each other? Yeah. So Pisana's the place they're having the festival. Mm-hmm. It's during the day, right? So it's during the day, and she does the force connection with him. He's black with a white room, and she's wearing white, but it's during the day. But if you notice, immediately when they do a force connection, it turns dark there. And you're just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would it turn dark? But it stays the same. Well, they're trying to put the background black with her white, and they do the yin and yang. And as soon as they get done with the force connection, it's daytime again. Right. I thought, gosh, that's so clever to do that. It's really, really smart. Yeah. So I like what he did there.
Yeah. Visually, and honestly, you don't even, unless you sit there and break it down, all of that just kind of happens because the focus is on the characters and what they're saying. You don't realize all the stuff that's happening in the background that's kind of playing into that scene itself.
Did you want to talk about page 175 where Kylo is lounging in the chair, much similar to the picture I have of you from Celebration lounging in the throne chair?
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah. It's almost kind of like a Scarface, right? Where
it is, yeah. It's very
kind of lounging, sitting there. Say hello to my little friend. There's that one. And then the one above it is very similar. And these have been posted. You can see Kylo Ren, he's sitting in this floating throne. Next to him looks like it's a Rey. It looks like Rey standing there, and she's kind of dressed in dark garb, and she's got her staff with her. These were images, concept art that came out really, really early on before they had any idea. In fact, I think they were just kind of playing with like what happens after The Last Jedi? What does that look like? And that was pretty much all the direction that they had. And so they threw these images together, and so they really stand out because you're like, what the heck? How did this happen, right? And because knowing what we know about the movie, this path wasn't there, right? But they're very cool nonetheless. I mean, there's some great shots in here. And I remember when this book came out, or when these got leaked, this is one of the big ones. People were talking about this quite a bit because she's in there. Same thing with the one on the bottom of page 174 where she's holding. You've got Rey. It looks like, I guess it's Rey. I don't know. Maybe it's a Knight of Ren, but it looks like Rey. She's got his cross saber up to his neck and pulling back on his hair, like about to cut his head off.
Although that could be Michael Myers.
That's true. It does look.
It's very William
like
Shatner mask.
It's a great lead into your next show here.
There you go.
Let's see what else we got. There's more shots in here of them escaping. We got a lot. There's a lot of Pisana. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there is.
There's a ton of it. And we haven't really talked about it much. And we need to kind of wrap things up here because we're coming up an hour and a half. But a lot of the ships, interesting enough, they had a lot of designs for, or they got a couple designs in here for the ship that Ochi ultimately, it belongs to him, and the one that we saw from The Force Awakens. You get some imagery of her backflipping over the TIE fighter that we saw. The caves, that's all in here. There's a couple of shots here and there of that stuff. I'm trying to think. Let's jump ahead here. I want to get into the Death Star. And the remnants of the Death Star. Because this is the one that's always, again, this is where your mind tends to wander quite a bit. But there's some great images here of the Death Star and what the wreckage looks like and different views. And you've got more of the, I think we were all intrigued by, I think it was was it Force Awakens or Rise of Skywalker? I'm sorry, Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, where we saw Rey swimming underneath the water. And she's swimming by the throne.
I think that was Force Awakens. Yeah,
I think so.
And that's what these books do. You'll go through these and you'll remember something you saw 2 years ago, and you dig out the old book and flip through it, and you just see the connection among all this artwork.
And the reason I mention that is because a lot of time, and they say this, and I read it a few times in a couple of different books, but here they say it again, that early on, the idea of going back to the Death Star or the remains of the Death Star started off as a loose idea that they wanted to work into The Force Awakens and never could make it happen. And so rather than saying, no, we'll never do that again or whatever, they just kind of table it and say, okay, well, let's keep it on a burner. And if it presents itself down the road, then we can come back to it. So they don't, they were able to kind of lean into this over the time and certainly lean on the work that had already been done. And we get a lot of it here. There's a lot of great images of the remnants and, Poe and Janna walking around. You've got Rey, searching for the Wayfinder.
Very Apocalypse Now on that storyboard up on 217, where she's kind of the Apocalypse Now picture of, is it Martin Sheen going into the water?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good catch.
Really cool.
Yeah, you're talking about the third one down there on the far right side? Yep. Yeah, and we see that shot done in a lot of movies. Redone. On 218 at the top, I thought that was great. Anytime we get somebody using a lightsaber to cut a hole in a door or wall, it's great stuff. We got a lot of it.
And underwater.
And underwater too, right? Yeah.
Kit Fisto style? The lightsaber underwater?
Yep. Which they had to come out and explain. Well, no, I don't want to get into that. Wait, there was
I know what you're talking about. The head on the pikes.
No. Two different things. But yeah, you're right. Head on the pikes. There's an image of what is the skull of Kit Fisto, or at least his
Akbar,
race.
Fisto, and somebody
Gamorrean
else.
Guard, I think. But there's there's skulls that were supposed to sit on pikes, which is another morbid thing. But anyways, no, what I was talking about was there was a lot of, way back in the day, controversy or discussion around how does a lightsaber ignite underwater. And I don't know if this was official or not, but it went so far as to explain the technical design behind the lightsaber and that it has a chamber that allows for underwater usage. And so it won't, you can use it underwater, and it's really nerdy stuff. But anyways, only if, and this is, okay, so to kind of wrap things up here, and I'm doing this on purpose. I mean, we got some stuff on here. We got to talk about the Death Star. We talked about some of the footage that was, or some of the stuff that was used, not used around that. But the book kind of starts to wander or wade off a little bit. There's not a whole lot left. And when you're going through this, you're like, okay, so I only have like 20 more pages left, and I have not seen anything from Exegol. The Battle of Exegol. I mean, there's a couple shots in here, but there's not a lot. I don't have anything from Palpatine. Yeah. I don't have anything about Snoke. I don't have anything about the acolytes. The whole "Be With Me" scene. Okay, where's that at?
Burying the sabers.
What's that?
Burying the sabers. There's nothing.
Yeah, on Tatooine. There's no Reylo. We don't have her death. We don't have his death in here, or their saving, or that battle. It all just kind of trickles off, and you're like, what happened? Where did it all go? And this is where I guess my only feedback is I said this early on, I just wish there would have been more to it, because it kind of just, it ends there. And it's an amazing book, like I said, beginning to end. I just wish we would have gotten the rest of it. And I don't feel cheated. I feel like it was worth the price for sure. But I would hope that at some point we get to see all of that footage, even if it really isn't that much, which I can't believe, given how many versions of Dio we got. My gut tells me there's a lot of work there, and he does. I mean, Phil, I don't know if it was Phil or someone else mentions that it's a tough job to narrow this down and include, the 8,000 pictures that they had to pick from, when there's 150,000 pictures that's to start with. So it is hard to whittle all that down. And I get that they were trying to preserve the secrecy here by not including some of those shots, because those are, monumental moments in the movie and in the saga. So we don't want that to be spoiled. But I don't know. Maybe they do it digitally, or maybe there's an appendix, like a
errata sheet or something.
Sure, an errata sheet. You're showing your age on that one. But yeah, that would be cool if they did something like that to include them. So we're kind of out of time, so I don't. There's a lot more here, obviously, and like I said early on, we could probably do another show on this book. We probably could have broken this up into mini shows and broken this up into different chapters. But I don't know. Overall, what did you think about the book? Is it something that you're going to be going back to the well? I mean, I can say right now, sorry, I know I asked you a question, then I'm going to answer. I haven't even gone back to, like, I'm not done with The Force Awakens, and I'm not done with The Last Jedi. Like, I feel like I'm queued up to go back still to look at those, because I've never got a chance to sit down with them the way I wanted to. But thoughts around the book itself before we go?
Yeah, you have to, now that we have all three, now you can look at all three and really start comparing the similarities among so much artwork that was done over, 6-7 years. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to take this, compare it to things that I've noticed, just, referencing back and forth and finding these little hidden things. I mean, just flipping through here now, I saw 2 or 3 things I missed the first time, and it's probably going to be millions of things I've missed. So overall, these books are totally worth picking up, especially like we said earlier, if you have an imagination, if you're watching Star Wars or into it, you probably do anyway. But this is right up your alley if you do.
Cool. All right. Let's get on. Thank you for covering that with me.
Oh yeah.
Let's do, I got a couple shout outs, or I got one shout out here. We got a iTunes review. It's a 5-star review. So thank you. This comes from Obi-Wan McObi. Hope I said that right. It says, these guys are great. You must listen to their character dissections and their unique psychological analysis of a few characters. So very humbling. Thank you so much for doing that, Mom. I appreciate you submitting that like I asked you to. No, thank you, Obi-Wan McObi, for that feedback. It's really important. And if you guys get a chance, if you've not ever done so, we appreciate any feedback, whether it's good or bad. Please, you can do that over on iTunes. Leave us a review there. Give us some stars. Put some comments in there. We'll read it here on the air. Let's talk about the network before we get out of here. You got a show called The Film Appraisers, and rumor has it you have a new show coming out tomorrow, April 9th?
We do, yeah. So we recently covered ET with you on our show.
Yay.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
But we needed a little bit of light in all this quarantine mess. So what do? We converse it with the dark, and we tapped into our listeners list. We have our listeners submit films that they want us to take a look at. So we have Halloween, the 1978 version, coming out tomorrow.
Very cool. We did that on so Mike and I did a basement special podcast on Halloween. So I am going to definitely listen to that one as soon as it comes out, because I want to hear your opinions on the movie, especially Joe's. Like, I don't know where Joe could go one way or the other. I'm not sure where he lands, but don't spoil it for me. I'm curious to see where he landed with that film.
I won't tell you.
Good. All right. So yeah, take a look at that one. If you guys haven't had a chance, I'll let Josh speak about the show here in just a second. But and then also on the network, we've got Petticoats and Poppies. They released that Jane Eyre show last week, and they've got a new one coming out this week. Hasn't been recorded yet. So if you haven't had a chance, this is your opportunity to get caught up. You can catch that one. That's their second episode. And those ladies do an outstanding job of breaking down a lot of these period films. And they both got excellent backgrounds, historic backgrounds, and can really, man, I mean, they make this thing sound so way more insightful than you would have ever thought. So give them a listen. They're doing really well with that show. We're excited and happy to have them on the network. So Josh, before we go, where can people find you? Where can they find the show, the Film Appraisers?
Easy, just any podcatcher, the Film Appraisers. You'll find it if you do a search. You can also listen directly on our website, earglomedia.com/TFA. And then if you want to get us on social media, we're a little more active on Instagram. It just kind of fits with the theme of our show. Mm-hmm. But Twitter's at FAppraisers and Instagram is at Film Appraisers.
And sorry, I probably should ask you this, but can you give us like what's the elevator pitch here on the show? What sets it apart from other film shows?
Yeah, so like the billions of film podcasts that are out there, we have to stand apart. So we feel like we're the only one that valuates, and we're not saying evaluate, we're saying valuate. We actually put a dollar value to different categories that we feel are important to make a film the best of all time. And so we found that if you look at different categories, narrative, technique, longevity, uniqueness, and music, and we give it a dollar range between 0 and 20,000 for each of those categories, it makes for a very interesting analysis at the end to see where some of these films fall as far as the greatest of all time. We've had some really shockers, Almost Famous, Dead Poets Society, that have ranked really high. And that's because it did really well in each category. So it's kind of an eye-opening look. We don't like to do thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 to 5 stars. There's nothing wrong with that. But we just wanted to take a different approach just to see where some of these films land. And it's been a good run so far. Yeah, no, it's been successful. It's a great formula, very creative. And I think it's the number 1 and number 2 ranked films from your guys' show are all from the same host or guest, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Pop and Taco, a DJ that I know from San Antonio. Yep. So take a look, listen to the show. You guys won't be disappointed. It's a lot of fun, especially tomorrow if they're releasing Halloween. You guys are kind of sick in that way. All right. As far as us, you can find us a number of different ways. We are on Instagram at the CantinaCast, Twitter at the CantinaCast, Facebook /the CantinaCast. You can send us an email at cantinacastfanmail, an email to cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com. 803-717-CAST if you'd like to send us a text or call us up and leave us a voicemail. And of course, you can find us on every podcatcher. We've got a Discord channel where all of our hosts, Josh included, are on there. You can support us by going to Patreon and pledging, money to keep the lights on. We'd appreciate that. You get some perks and bonuses like the Cantina radio show as well for pledging money there. And if you, again, earlier, like I said, if you want to leave us a review, we would appreciate the kind words, or not, over on iTunes, and feel free to do that whenever you can. So that's going to do it for us. I know it went a little bit longer. Thank you guys for sticking around as long as you did. Hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown. Go buy the book if you haven't already. And before we go, Josh, any final thoughts, last words before we head out of here? Star Wars is pizza. Or beer. Or beer. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.